I found the second phone halfway through folding his laundry, tucked inside the pocket of the jeans he never let me wash. Its cheap plastic shell bit into my hand, black and nondescript, with a screen that came alive the second I pressed the power button, a lock screen, notifications hidden, a number I didn't recognize. I remember staring at it, heart beating so hard I nearly dropped the thing onto the hardwood. I could hear my husband humming in the kitchen, the easy domestic Sunday we'd crafted over 6 years suddenly as fragile as eggshells in my palm. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want there to be anything to find. But I did, and there was, and in that moment, standing in a patch of sunlight, socks in one hand, a secret life in the other, I knew the world as I'd built it was about to collapse. My name is Emily Rowan. I'm 34 years old. I work as a financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm in Boston, the kind of job that makes you overthink every price tag and read the fine print on every contract. I married Nick Rowan 6 years ago, after 3 years of dating and the steady, reassuring click of our lives meshing together. We lived in a small but warmly cluttered condo in Cambridge, surrounded by a life we'd built piece by piece, half mine, half his, joint accounts, shared calendars, matching mugs, future plans. I'd always believed trust was the bedrock of everything. I never thought I'd be the sort of person who went through her husband's clothes and found a secret phone. This is the story of how everything fell apart. Before that afternoon, my life was ordinary in the way I'd always wanted. I woke up with Nick most mornings. He was a project manager for a cybersecurity consultancy, always a bit cagey about the finer details of his work, but I chalked that up to NDAs and the kind of clients who paid for discretion. We'd eat breakfast together, me with my oatmeal, him with whatever was quick, and then we'd split for the day, him off to an office somewhere in the seaport, me into a cubicle maze with spreadsheets and market data. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We rented, saving toward a down payment that always seemed just out of reach, but we had a little nest egg, a shared account Nick managed. His math was always better than mine, he joked, and individual ones for our own spending. We'd talk about having kids, someday, never quite now, but soon. My parents visited every other month from Worcester, still treating me like the responsible child, the one whose life was on track. Nick's family was smaller, more scattered. His dad had died when he was in college, his mom lived outside Providence in a condo he helped pay for. He'd always been the protector, the responsible one, the rock for everyone around him. I loved that about him. I trusted him with my life, my future, my money, my heart. I thought we were a team. Maybe I missed the small red flags because I wanted so badly to believe. Now, looking back, I realize the tension that simmered beneath our routines. The way Nick's phone would vibrate at odd hours, and he'd step into another room to take a call. The business trips that popped up last minute, never longer than a few days, always to nondescript cities, never with details about who he met or what he did. I'd tease him about being a secret agent, and he'd laugh, playing into it, spinning stories. If I told you, I'd have to kill you, he'd say, grinning. I always thought we were sharing a private joke. There were other things, too, the way he'd change passwords on our banking apps, explaining it was just good security hygiene. The time he lost his wallet and had to cancel all his cards, then somehow ended up with a new one on a different bank, which he said was because his old bank was unreliable. He was always practical, always reassuring. I wanted to believe him. We never fought about money. I managed my own account, and he managed the rest, rent, utilities, savings. Every month he'd send me a neat little summary, color-coded, explaining our goals. I was grateful. It let me focus on my work, my friends, my own small joys. I trusted his spreadsheets more than my own judgment. I never looked too closely at the details. I told myself that was love. The day I found the phone, I was cleaning because I'd promised myself I'd get ahead of the chores for once. Nick was making lunch, his famous grilled cheese, and humming that old Death Cab song he always played when he was relaxed. The sun streamed through the pane, and for a moment I felt lucky, content. And then I reached into the pocket of his jeans, and my hand closed around a rectangle that shouldn't have been there. The shock ran through me like an electric current. There was a childish part of me that wanted to throw the phone back into the pocket, pretend I'd never seen it. I stood there, holding it, the world narrowing to a single question: why did my husband have a phone I didn't know about? I scrolled through the notifications on the lock screen. All hidden, just one new message or two missed calls, no preview, no names. The wallpaper was a stock image, blue fractals, nothing personal. The PIN code was wrong, my birthday, his, our anniversary. I heard him call from the kitchen, You want tomato on yours? And I stashed the phone in my pocket, suddenly shaky. Yeah, please, I called back, and my voice sounded normal, even as my heart thudded in my throat. Lunch was a blur. I watched him, every gesture suddenly suspect, the way he glanced at his phone, the one I knew, the way he smiled at me, the way his hands moved. I tried to act normal, but inside I was running scenarios, each worse than the last. Cheating. Gambling. Debt. Something criminal. Or maybe, just maybe, I was overreacting. After lunch, I claimed a headache and went to lie down. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, turning the phone over in my hands. I tried again, the same pins. On a whim, I entered the 4 digits of his mother's birthday. The screen unlocked. There were few apps, just messages, a contact list, all numbers, no names, a calculator, a photo album with nothing in it. The message app was full of threads, most recent near the top. I clicked on the most recent. Can't meet tomorrow. Risky, one thread read. Another, funds transferred. Same location? A third, don't use this number again. Cold washed over me. My mind scrambled for explanations, each more implausible than the last. My husband, my steady, careful Nick, was involved in something secret, and it involved money. A lot of money, if the messages were any indication. I took photos of the screen with my own phone, hands shaking. I told myself I'd ask him about it, but I already knew I couldn't, not yet. I needed more. For the next week, I watched him. I went through his pockets, his backpack, his desk drawers. I memorized the pattern of his days, the phone calls, the late-night texts, the times he left the house for errands that didn't make sense. I found receipts for cash deposits at banks we didn't use, envelopes with cryptic notes, dates, times, initials. I started to notice other things, too. The way he flinched when I asked about work. The way his stories didn't quite line up. The way he was suddenly careful about using our main bank account, small withdrawals, cash outflows I couldn't trace. Every day, the evidence mounted, and my certainty grew. Nick was leading a double life, one that involved money, secrecy, and lies. But I didn't know the half of it, not yet. The day the betrayal truly broke over me wasn't the day I found the phone. It was the day I discovered what Nick had been doing with our money, and with me. It started with a bank statement. A plain white envelope in our mailbox, addressed to him, but the return address was a bank I didn't recognize. I opened it because curiosity had become a compulsion, a need to know, even if the answer would destroy me. Inside was a statement for an account in Nick's name, opened before we were married. It was flush with deposits, large, round numbers, always just after the dates of his business trips. The balance was nearly $120,000. I felt sick. I sat on the bottom step and stared at the numbers. I hadn't seen statements for this account in our summaries. Where had the money come from? Where was it going? That night, after Nick fell asleep, I searched the account number online, nothing. I called the bank, posing as him, my voice trembling, hoping for a detail that would make sense. The woman on the line was brisk, polite, unhelpful. I'm sorry, sir, we can't discuss account details over the phone without verification. I hung up, hollowed out by dread. The next day, I called in sick and drove to the address listed on the statement. The branch was small, tucked into a strip mall in Quincy. I waited in line, stomach churning, rehearsing what I'd say. At the counter, I showed the statement and said I was helping my husband with a paperwork error. The teller, a tired-looking man in glasses, looked at the paper, then typed something into his computer. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't give you any details without your husband's authorization. I understand, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Can you tell me when the account was opened? I'm just trying to update our files. He hesitated, then, perhaps out of sympathy, said, it's been active since 2016. Been a lot of activity recently. I thanked him and left, my mind whirling. The account predated our marriage, but the deposits had only started in the last 2 years, right after Nick got his new job. I drove home numb. I wanted to confront him, to demand the truth. But I was afraid of the answer. That night, I sat at our dining table, staring at my own reflection in the dark window, the city lights behind me. I thought about the life I'd built, the trust I'd given, the money I'd helped save. I thought about the messages, the secret phone, the account. And I realized, Nick wasn't just hiding money. He was using me, my credit, my clean record, my stability, to build a separate life, one I knew nothing about. I felt like a fool. Like I'd been sleepwalking for years. The fallout was swift and brutal. I tried to act normal, but I was unraveling. I double-checked every account, every bill, every password. I found more: credit cards in my name I hadn't opened, small balances that didn't match my spending, transfers I never authorized. It was as though I was disappearing, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I confronted Nick, finally, unable to hold the pieces together any longer. We were in the living room, the news playing in the background. I stood in front of him, the phone in one hand, the bank statement in the other. I found this, I said, voice flat. Do you want to explain? He didn't look surprised. He didn't even look guilty. He just sighed, rubbed his temples, and said, Emily, it's complicated. Make it simple. He stared at me, jaw set. I can't tell you everything. It's work. Work? I laughed, bitter. Work is taking out credit cards in my name? Hiding money? His eyes narrowed. You don't get it. There are things I can't say. You could get hurt. I felt rage, then fear. Am I in danger? No, he said, too quickly, but you're making it worse. I threw the phone at the couch, the bank statement after it. I want the truth, Nick. All of it, now. He stood, looming, his voice low. It's not safe. For either of us. I was shaking. Is that a threat? He didn't answer. He just walked out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. After that night, the walls closed in. Nick became a stranger in our home, distant, cold, answering only what he must. He changed all the passwords again, even to the shared accounts. He started sleeping on the couch, coming home later and later. Sometimes he'd disappear for days, sending a single text, work trip. Don't wait up. I tried to reach out to friends, but it felt impossible to explain. I called my mother, but I could hear the worry in her voice, the disappointment she tried to hide. My world shrank to the size of a single condo, stifled by secrets. The money grew tighter. Bills went unpaid, our savings started to bleed away. I pawned my engagement ring to pay the electric bill, too ashamed to tell anyone. Nick didn't seem to notice. One morning, I checked our main account and saw it nearly empty, less than $100. The savings account had been closed. My name was gone from the joint credit card. I called the bank in tears. They told me the accounts had been changed the week before, authorized by Nick. Legally, there was nothing I could do. I felt trapped, powerless, erased. The worst part was the fear. I started seeing strange cars parked outside our building. I'd catch glimpses of men I didn't recognize in the lobby, their eyes flicking to me, away again. I couldn't tell if it was paranoia or something real. The messages on the secret phone grew more urgent. Client wants update. Funds must clear by Friday. Watch your six. I started to doubt my own sanity. Nick stopped coming home. His mother called once, asking if I'd heard from him. I lied and said he was traveling for work. I went to the police, finally, desperate. I showed them the bank statements, the credit card charges, the phone. The detective was kind but skeptical. Do you have proof your husband stole from you? I pointed to the accounts, but my name was gone. Looks like he just moved his own money. I felt invisible. I called the bank again, tried to freeze the accounts, but without Nick's authorization, I was locked out. I tried to change my passwords, but it was too late. Everything was slipping through my fingers. I started getting calls from creditors, collections for cards I'd never opened, balances I couldn't pay. I was being buried alive in someone else's mess. My credit score tanked. My boss pulled me aside, concerned about my focus, my performance slipping. I was alone, drowning, desperate. Then, one night, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No name, just a folded piece of paper with a single sentence: "He's not who you think he is." My hand shook as I read it. I sat down, heart pounding, and realized that whoever had sent it knew something. Maybe, finally, I wasn't alone in this nightmare. I reached out to a friend from college, Sarah, who worked in compliance at a rival firm. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but I called her, voice trembling, and told her everything. She listened, then said, You need to get legal help. And you need to protect yourself, now." She connected me to a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud. He listened to my story, then asked for every document I had: bank statements, credit card bills, photos of the secret phone, copies of the messages. He told me the truth: Nick had been laundering money through our joint accounts, using my identity to open new lines of credit and funnel cash. The mysterious deposits were payments from shell companies, likely linked to corporate espionage or illegal tech sales. The phone was a burner, used to coordinate with contacts he didn't want traced. I was stunned. My entire marriage had been a cover, my stability, my spotless record, my trust, all leveraged for his schemes. The lawyer helped me file fraud reports with the banks, the credit bureaus, even the FBI. He told me to change every password, freeze every account, and start documenting everything. Sarah pulled strings to get my company's security team involved, concerned that Nick might have used my work credentials for his own purposes. They found no evidence, yet, but warned me to be vigilant. I was terrified, but for the first time, I had a plan. I started keeping a journal of everything Nick had done: dates, times, amounts, messages. I scanned every document, saved every text, backed up every file. I stopped answering calls from unknown numbers. I told my mother the truth, through tears, and she came to stay with me for a week, holding me when I broke down in the middle of the night. The lawyer advised me to file for separation and to seek a court order for financial disclosure. He told me to be careful: Nick was likely to become unpredictable, maybe even dangerous, as the walls closed in. I was scared, but I refused to be erased. Nick tried to come home once, late at night. He was drunk, angry, pounding on the door. I didn't let him in. I called the police, and they escorted him away. It was the last time I saw him face to face. The investigation moved slowly, too slowly for my liking, but the lawyer assured me it was progressing. The banks began to reverse some of the fraudulent charges. My company put me on paid leave while the situation resolved. I was exhausted, brittle, but no longer helpless. I dug deeper into Nick's files, searching for leverage. I found a USB drive hidden in the bottom of his sock drawer, labeled only with a date. On it were encrypted files, but one folder was accessible: a series of scanned documents, invoices, contracts with names I recognized from the messages. I copied everything, sent it to the lawyer. It was the evidence we needed. The contracts tied Nick to a shadowy company known for buying and selling stolen corporate data. The payments matched the deposits in his secret account. My lawyer forwarded the files to the authorities. The FBI opened an investigation. Slowly, the pieces came together. It wasn't a dramatic takedown: no handcuffs in the rain, no shouting, no closure. But I watched, in real time, as the accounts were frozen, as Nick's name appeared on federal dockets, as the money trail unraveled. My credit was slowly repaired, my accounts restored, painfully, step by step. I testified in a deposition, hands trembling, telling the truth about what I'd seen, what I'd found. I watched men in suits carry boxes out of Nick's office, and I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Through it all, Sarah supported me, calling every day, checking in, reminding me that I was more than what had been done to me. It took months, but Nick was eventually indicted on charges of wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. He fled, disappeared into whatever dark network he'd been part of, but the damage was done. His accounts were seized, his reputation ruined, his contacts burned. I filed for divorce. I changed my name. I moved out of the condo, started over in a smaller apartment on the other side of the city. The revenge was never about punishing Nick, not really. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, my future. It was about refusing to be a casualty of someone else's secret war. In the end, I rebuilt. My credit slowly healed. My mother visited every week, bringing groceries, cleaning, reminding me that I was still me. I went back to work, cautious but determined, a little harder, a little wiser. Some nights, I lay awake, replaying everything, what I missed, what I ignored, what I lost. I grieved the life I thought I had, the trust I'd given so freely. But I survived. I fought back. I learned to trust myself again. I don't know where Nick is now. Sometimes, I still flinch when I see a strange car or hear a phone ring late at night. But I refuse to let fear define me. This is my story. I told the truth. I stood up. I took my life back, piece by piece, until it was mine again. And that's enough.